Joe, can you say and spell your name for me?
Yes.
Can you do it for me?
Oh, you'd like me to do it?
Right.
Joseph Gugliotta. Josephgugliotta. Junior, Jr.
And when did you become interested in flying?
Well, Nick, I first became interested in flying. It was sophomore year of high school. I was about 15 years old at the time.
And why did you become interested in flying?
It's a funny story, actually. No one in my family actually flies, so I can't say that an uncle or my father inspired me. Actually, I just found planes fascinating, looking up at the sky and watching them go across, so I thought, hey, why not? I should give this a try.
So tell me about your first flying experience.
My first flying experience, gosh. Well, I was a junior. Wait, cut. My first flying experience, gosh. Well, I was a sophomore, and my mom made this bet with me because she was afraid to death of flying that if I got an A on a test, she'd let me take a flight. So hopped in a plane and got an A on that test, obviously. I hopped in a plane, and it was the most amazing experience of my life. And ever since then, it's just been unreal.
What was it like when you did that first takeoff?
I was a little nervous when I got in the plane because it was just so small and I wasn't used to something like that. But we did the takeoff and it was just this amazing rush of adrenaline. It was just unbelievably exhilarating.
And when did you decide you wanted to make a career out of flying?
I knew pretty much from the start that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to learn to fly so I could become a pilot and be a pilot in some kind of airline or corporate or something like that.
And tell us about where you are in your flying career right now.
All right, I'm still pretty early on just because it took me a while to get going. After going to school, it was hard to find an airport. But right now I have what's called a private pilot certificate. It lets me fly small airplanes by myself and with passengers. But I'm working right now on my instrument rating, which allows me to fly in weather. And then after that, I have to get a few more ratings to start flying commercially and make money.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the instrument rating and what you have to do and how long it takes?
Sure. Instrument rating, basically you learn to fly by relying solely on instruments. And you can't look outside the window as if you were in a cloud or you were in weather. And we learn how to scan the instruments, if there's a problem with one of the instruments, what we should look for, how to immediately recognize there's a problem and fix it. Engine failure in weather, it's very difficult to deal with, but we learn how to deal with that. Fuel management, fuel planning, it's very involved. It's a lot of work.
And how many hours for your instrument rating do you need?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
It's like, I don't want to say the wrong thing.
How expensive is it to learn how to fly?
How expensive is it? Flying isn't cheap. Especially in New England, the flight school that I've been using is very expensive, but they have very well-maintained planes. But the cheapest you could learn to fly is about $60 to $70 an hour for a very small two-person plane. And once you move up to instrument rating, it gets more expensive because you have to use better equipped planes, bigger planes. I'm paying around $110 an hour with an instructor. And as I continue with my training, it'll just get more and more expensive. So.
How much money and how much time have you spent up until now?
All right, up until now, I actually just tallied this the other day. I've spent over $9,000 on training, and I have about 150 flight hours. So.
Okay.
Do I look sexy?
Yes, of course you do.
Okay.
Who are you asking?
Just asking my manager.
No, I don't want me. You look sexy. All right. I just want to ask you that question again. How much time and how much money have you spent up to this point in your flying career?
All right. How much time and money have I spent? Over $9,000. I've recently just tallied it up. It's split about evenly right now between my private and my instrument rating. But it's about $9,000, and I have about 150 flight hours.
For you, where do you hope to be in a few years?
Well, where I hope to be is not really where I'm going to be, just because of the reality of becoming a pilot. I'd hope to be a corporate pilot by the end of my career. But to get there, you have to work your way up the ladder. You have to be, usually you're a flight instructor, and then you fly for a freight carrier, and you just move up slowly. really the only way to avoid that is to join the Air Force.
What's the best part of flying for you?
Best part of flying is probably the never-ending adventure, and you're always learning something new. You never go up and don't learn anything. So it's like you're constantly learning, you're constantly exploring new things, and I find that really amazing.
Tell me about your most fun or exhilarating adventure.
I've never had an adventure per se in an airplane. I mean, that kind of suggests that something went wrong, some kind of bad experience. But I guess my most fun flight was probably going down New Jersey. I live in New Jersey. Going down the Jersey Shore at low altitudes and just over in the summer and watching all the people wave at you and just looking at the ocean.
Were you ever worried about any time when you were flying?
Not much worries me. I'm not a worrier, but I had an instructor early on who liked to turn off the engine and show me how long it took to restart, and that kind of made me a little nervous. But other than that, nothing has really ever happened in the air.
You've never been anxious about flying in some bad weather?
I had a few anxious moments. One time I was coming home from New Jersey up to Boston, and it was really bad weather, and probably shouldn't have been flying. I was still legal, but probably shouldn't have been flying for my ability level. And I was low under the clouds. It was raining. It was a pretty bad night, and I was a little anxious, but I had faith in my equipment, and I got home okay.
Do your friends and family ever express any kind of anxiety or worriment over you flying?
Geez. My mom worries nonstop. She calls me after every flight to this day. One of my sisters doesn't like flying. She's really concerned about that. But my dad loves that I love it, and that's what matters, I guess. And my other.
Have you ever taken any family members up with you?
Not one. I've never taken a family member up, just friends.
How do you feel when you hear stories about accidents or fatalities involving, private aviation?
It's interesting. What pilots usually do is fatalities, accidents, things like that. It's a learning experience. And in just about every aviation magazine, in fact, in every aviation magazine, there's a whole section on recent accidents. And they analyze them, they analyze what went wrong, who did what should have been done, and you just read up on them and you learn.
And do the deaths of John Denver or JFK Jr. at the hands of a private piloting experience worry you at all?
JFK, he made a mistake. He was not flying when he should have been. And it's a mistake that many pilots make, and it just happened to get publicized because of who he is. But you got to be careful. John Denver, his situation was a little different. He didn't so much make a mistake as there was a kind of a design flaw in the plane he was flying. But same thing. You just learn from it.
Would you recommend flying to a friend?
If it's something they're interested to, I would definitely recommend flying to a friend, because once you get into it, if you like it, you can't stop, and it's just a great thing to do. It builds confidence. You learn so much. It's fun.
And what kind of person do you have to be a pilot?
To be a pilot, you need to have a clear head. You have to work very well under pressure. You have to be able to multitask. You have to always know what's going on. You can't become distracted by anything. There's constantly distractions. You have to know where you are in space, where you are on a map. You have to change frequencies. It's a lot of work. You have to have a clear head.
And do you have any other additional comments?
I mean, I don't know. Do I have comments?
Any questions, Zeke?
No, he doesn't. Let him explain to you the two types of ways that you're expressing concern over accidents. And let him say that it's mostly.
Like the two most common?
Yeah.
I could say that, like the two most common.
Tell me about the different kinds of accidents that are common among
Right.
pilots.
As far as accidents that happen while in the air, actually, first of all, most accidents, just about all, happen either during takeoff or landing, while you're in the vicinity of an airport. Once you're in the air, very little chance of an accident. As far as what accidents occur, up there, it's either weather-related, fuel starvation, or controlled flight into terrain, which is basically you become disoriented, you don't know where you are, and you fly into a mountain, you fly into the ground, you fly into a plane. And they're all completely preventable. And it's a shame that they happen, but that's the most common forms of accidents.
Anything else? I think we got it all right.
I mean, I don't know what exactly you want.
Ask him about stunt flying.
I don't know anything about that.
Oh, come on.
What do you want to get out of this interview?
Well, the whole feature is, how do you weigh, on one side you have exhilaration, on the other side you have safety. How do you weigh those two aspects when you're flying?
All right. How do I weigh them? One way to weigh the balance between exhilaration and safety is the amount of redundant systems in the aircraft. Everything has a backup system, and what's not backup, you don't need a backup. There's checklists for everything. So we don't just hop in a plane like you would hop in a car and drive off. We check the tires before every flight. We check the oil. We check the fuel levels. We check everything. And when we start the aircraft, we're reading out of a book exactly what to do. So there's no mistakes can possibly be made. If an engine fails, we've been trained to death on exactly what to do the second the engine quits. So we know how to land the plane. If we can't get it restarted, we know what might have caused a failure in the aircraft. Things like that.
How would you weigh exhilaration versus cost? I mean, sometimes you're going up for recreation, and it's a lot of money. It's $100,
It's a lot of money.
over $100 an hour.
Well, it's if basically, I mean, the way I see it is if you have the money and it's something you truly get an enjoyment out of, and something that really makes you feel good, then why not? And the other thing is, most of the flying that I do is training, so essentially it pays for itself because you will get a high-paying job in the end from what you're doing.
Okay.
Okay.
Captain Forrester.
Can you spell that? Forster. F-O-R-S-T-E-R.
Put in the remarks, greatest pilot ever. I wonder if they would do if you filed that. Like, do it on Duos so no one actually hears you file it and type it in. Me and Aaron are just talking about that. Like, what do you think they would say when they saw that? So what if you filed a Boston and back? Just, Bedford to Bedford via Boston.
They you all over the place. That's probably what they
To try to
Where's Manchester?
get an ILS in a
Where's
Boston.
Manchester?
Yeah.
New Hampshire.
Okay, that
I think
makes
it's
sense.
the capital of New Hampshire.
Is it?
Is it? We didn't do geography at school, did we?
I
Alright, I'll see you out there.
never really paid attention
Hello?
in school.
Work. You sound so shocked that I came to work.
Okay, GPS at Manchester. Cool.
GPS?
Um,
Oh,
no, what are you making?
ILS?
What do you- What's actually, what's the,
735.
so it'd be 35, what's
I'll
the
be home around
GPS?
5:30.
There's a bunch of them.
Alright, anything with
I'm
a
about to go
T.
flying right now for an hour. Okay.
I've never done.
Where are you guys?
ILS up there. Let's do the ILS 35.
Okay. Sounds good.
Hills?
Something new. Mix it up with the jets if there's any.
Okay.
File to Boston, see what they do. Just for, you can't get charged, you're not gonna land, just a miss. So can I get the ILS 22 right?
I wouldn't, it'd be busy there today, so I would get
That would be pretty intense.
annoyed.
They'd be very.
I get annoyed anyway when we're up
They
there.
get annoyed just talking to them.
Alright. Nice beeps, there'll be plenty of bleeps on that.
Yeah.
when you hear my
It's a really good
language.
project.
Yeah.
You already did an interview. It came out pretty good. So.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
How'd you turn out?
I think I looked pretty good.
Yeah,
Did I look
it
good?
did look good.
Yeah, it looked good.
You
now.
There you go.
Oh, there it is. That's good. Always, you know.
Don't put this in the video. Yes, it is illegal. I hope you brought more than one tape, right?
Yeah.
All right, good. Don't move. Okay. You can talk about the security precautions and stuff. That's what all this stuff is. Like you have to have 3 forms of lock. So ignition lock, door locks, prop lock. That's the 3.
I'm just gonna shoot some
Oh yeah, go for it.
B-roll. So.
So that's nice. Oh, you did.
Departure frequency will be 12.4. Squawk 4634.
Alright, clear Bedford via Manchester Direct Beverly Direct, 2,000 feet expecting 3,000 within 10 minutes, 124.4.
That's a big holiday. Cool.
Cool.
It's landing out about an inch.
instruments check out. I guess I should be talking loud if I do stuff so it gets recorded too.
This is almost none of it's bad, you know.
So,
No, I taught you good, man.
yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You have.
And we'll use good grammar on this spot too.
So,
You've,
so as we taxi, we check the instruments to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. As far as when we make a left turn, they show we're turning left, and vice versa. We call status, which is a frequency that gives us updated weather information and barometric pressures, what runway is being used, and we use that information to just get ourselves up to date, and so the controllers know that we're up to date. We have the most current information. And what we're doing now is taxiing to the runway, and we're going to do a run-up, get all the information, make sure the systems on the plane are working, and then we're going to depart from Manchester. Thanks, Joe. You got it, Nick.
like a Walter Cronkite sitting here next to me.
Thanks, Rob. You should sing this interview. I'm such like a prick on it.
What was it? What was it? He went higher.
Yes. What did the interview we were doing? So we're doing a lot of now with the engine up to basically 5 RPM, and we test the ignition system. Right.
Did they check those?
No. Just check that. Yeah. Let's see, we got a charge, what else? Discharge, back to the green, pressures, green, temperature, on, fuel, will die. And, everything else is good. We'll check our idle. Make sure the plane doesn't stall out, quit. Okay. Check all our, annunciator lights. Check our autopilot. We're doing 4634. Alright, let's set up for Manchester.
Okay.
Pursuant 460, Anthem Tower, runway 29 position, hold caution wake turbulence for the arriving Global Express 29.
Distant hold. 460.
Express 67, Romeo X-ray, left at the end, ground point 7, good day.
Left at the end, point 7, Romeo X-ray. Alright, lights, camera, action, man. Let's get some, get ourselves looking like a disco. Here's all the runway to it.
Tower Cessna 1307 Alpha, holding short 29er IFR. Cessna 1307 Alpha, Anthem Tower, hold short runway 29er for IFR release. Hold short, 07 Alpha. Cessna 460, fly runway heading, runway 29er, cleared for takeoff.
What are we having on 29 or 460?
just like to make a decision made at the same benefit of doing 2 miles. We didn't pass it. When we had said that it was the 5 hours.
Nick, this is what separates the boys from the men. We got that on tape.
Alright, level off till we get back. Unavailable. 3 degrees.
Mr. 472, turn left to Bravo, left on Alpha, around 49. 0472.
That's 320 IBL at 800, but that's not bad. Just sort of 40 seconds left over here.
Yes, yours. Right, 700, 516.
breathing process, so you don't want to decay too much. Very nice.
Full 3605.
TIF unavailable.
Not bad.
I'll allow it. I'm
Ready for takeoff.
460, thanks for the nice short approach. You contact ground point 7 off the runway. Have a good day.
Alright, over to ground.
Alright. Don't touch anything. I've been getting really angry with people doing that, so just don't get into that habit. I know everyone does it, but for the check ride,
Yeah, it's a bad idea anyway.
and some guy did it 2A on a check ride the day before I had to do a check ride.
Oh, did he keep down?
No, but I had to do a check ride the next day.
Oh, so it was like the end of the world.
Tower pad.
So just get the check ride.
Short at 29 Echo refly for departure Brunswick. 075 Hanson Tower, hold short. Then hang on the final, be a moment.
Oh, you
Hold short, 075.
Flaps, frequencies, lights.
yeah, I got it.
And Clipper connection 35, thanks, you want, ready to go in sequence.
An inch. Alright. We good?
Yep.
1, 2, right, yeah. Western ground system 2146 Zulus, clear up 29er, request taxi to west ramp.
Chestnut 2146 Zulu, Aspen Bravo, Juliet, taxi to the ramp.
Alright, happy Juliet, force it
He really knows how to write in the back.
Yeah, it's a much different sight picture. Did you get the AOPA DVD in the mail? You AOPA?
I didn't get the, I don't know if I got the new one. It's the first one was no good, apparently.
Oh, it just came like a few days ago. It was,
Okay.
it was pretty useful. It was just like crosswind landings and things like that. I mean, it's all just private stuff, but
It was good.
it was a good. I thought it was a good refresher. It was, 25 minutes long.
Yeah, they sent me one and they sent me a letter saying that it was no good. So,
Really?
yeah, they had to like send out a whole new batch.
Well, that's weird. They're trying to replace the FAA seminars with that.
Yeah, I get so many emails from the FAA and I don't know how they got my email address. Every day I'm getting something on a seminar.
Yeah, they come. Yeah, I get the same thing. Seminar in your area.
Yes, ground, here 997 Romeo Charlie's with you, off at 23, we need to go to customs. Here 997 Romeo Charlie, asking go around, turn left on Echo. We'll see a Global Express aircraft turning from Sierra Echo, follow that traffic to customs. Okay, roger that, and we'll give way to Global and follow.
Every time something comes up, they fear for their life. Their parents fear for their
Joe,
life.
just make sure the shot is framed, okay? Is it good?
Yeah, I mean, you move.
Oh, I'm back in the right.
And you can talk to me
Okay.
rather than the camera. Can you say and spell your name for me?
Say and spell my name.
Yeah.
Floyd, 2 Fs, double F, L-O-Y-D, Forster, F-O-R-S-T-E-R.
How is his first name spelled?
Floyd, with
Yeah.
2 Fs.
2F.
Yeah, long story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And can you tell me how long you've been a pilot for?
First started flying in 1990.
And what are your goals or aspirations as in the piloting career in a career?
I've been a commercial pilot for 5 years. I worked in the crop dusting industry for 3.5 years. Also hold a commercial helicopter license. At the moment, flight instructing in Boston, and maybe looking at an airline or corporate career.
And can you tell me some of the issues revolving around safety issues and private piloting?
Where do I start? I mean, it all starts with day one with training pilots. So bad habits start from the first second you teach them. So the first things you're going to teach a student, probably they're the biggest things that students are going to remember. first time you teach someone how to fly, the first hour they're overwhelmed. A lot of those things they're going to remember for the rest of their life. So if there's any bad habits in there, you've instilled them straight away. So safety starts the instant you start flying. It's an endless issue. The biggest thing is currency. You've got to keep your skill up to date, I suppose you'd say. Fly often and keep up to date with publications as well. I mean, rules change. It's not just about flying nowadays. Airspace, one of the biggest things nowadays is traffic. Especially in the northeast here, it's very congested. And pilots are responsible, private pilots especially if they're visual, are responsible for their own separation. So that's one of the biggest issues today, I think.
That's all I needed.
How was I? All right.
Cool.
You're going to show me this?
Yeah, you can take a look.
Was strange, but then this plane begins to take off again on the street, and there you see. Not a good take. Well, the landing was strange, but then this plane begins to take off again on the street, and there you see. Not a good takeoff. It ends up in the bushes there. Luckily, the pilot and his family were not in danger. The Cessna flying from South Carolina to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and it ran out of gas a couple of miles away from an airport. So he ended up landing the plane on a busy highway safely. And in this video you're seeing right here is when he refueled and tried to take off again. But the wing of the plane, as you saw there, hit a parked car, I believe it was an ambulance, and then sent him into the trees. Fortunately, as I said, no one was hurt here. That's pretty amazing.
Wow, that is the good news. Well, it appears Halloween has become a real scream for retail.
Strength for later. Learn more.
While flying may be expensive, it is also very time-consuming. Our trip to the airport took an hour round trip. Pre-flight procedures took an hour, all for a short 90-minute flight. While you need a lot of money to be a private pilot, you also need a lot of time on your hands too. From Hanscom Field in Bedford, I'm Nick Barber. While flying may be expensive, it is also very time-consuming. Our trip to the airport took about an hour round trip, pre-flight procedures also an hour, for a short 90-minute flight. So while you need a lot of money on your hands, just keep rolling. While flying may be expensive, it is also very time-consuming. Our trip to the airport took about an hour round trip. Pre-flight procedures took about an also... Take 3. Ready?
Yep.
While flying may be expensive, it is also very time-consuming. Our trip to the airport took about an hour round trip. Our pre-flight procedures took also another hour for a short 90-minute flight. So while you need a lot of time on your hands... Shit. Take it again. There goes the Gulf Stream.
This way. All right.
While flying may be expensive, it is also very time-consuming. Our trip to the airport took about an hour round trip. Pre-flight procedures took another hour, and for a short... While flying may be time-consuming... One more time. While flying may be expensive, it is also very time-consuming. Our trip to the airport took about an hour round trip. Pre-flight procedures another hour, all for a short 90-minute flight. So while you need to have a lot of money on your hands, you know... There's the state police. While flying may be expensive, it is also very time-consuming. Our trip to the airport took about an hour round trip. Pre-flight procedures took another hour, and all for a short 90-minute flight. So while you need to have a lot of... God damn. There goes the Gulf Stream. While flying may be expensive, it is also very time-consuming. Our trip to the airport took about an hour round trip, pre-flight procedures another hour, and all for a short 90-minute flight. So while a pilot needs a lot of money on their hands, they also need a lot of time too. Reporting from Hanscom Field in Bedford, I'm Nick Barber. While flying is expensive, it also requires a lot of time. While flying may be expensive, it also requires a lot of time too. Our trip to the airport took about an hour round trip, pre-flight procedures another hour, and all for a short 90-minute flight. So while private pilots need a lot of money, they also need a lot of time too. Reporting from Hanscom Field in Bedford, I'm Nick Barber.
Look, the 7 is leaving.
And one more, and we'll be done.
Everything looks like it's in a good light, right?
Yeah.
Are you done except for this stuff?
Yeah.
The freedom of flight is often considered costly and sometimes... The freedom of flight is often considered costly and a sometimes dangerous endeavor, but for private pilots, there isn't anything more exhilarating. While the adventure does prove to be expensive, safety concerns are often unfounded. Already a private pilot, Joe is training for his instrument rating, which means that once he's certified, he can fly in reduced visibility or other poor weather conditions. Weather, in fact, is one of the most influential factors in piloting deaths. In 2004, nearly 40% of approximately 800 total fatalities were weather-related, but fatalities in private piloting on the whole are statistically rare. Over the past 15 years, private piloting fatalities have averaged between 1 and 2 deaths for every 100,000 hours flown. And while accidents can often be avoided, the expense of private aviation cannot.